Penguin Random House Audio presents Reviving Ophelia, Saving the Selves of Adolescent Girls, 25th Anniversary Edition, by Mary Pipher, Ph.D., and Sarah Pipher Gillum. Read for you by Maggie-Meg Reed. To the rebels and the shy girls, the activists and the poets, the big sisters and the little sisters, the daughters and dreamers, we believe in you. Introduction. Mary. Reviving Ophelia was my attempt to understand my experiences as a mother of a teenage daughter and a therapist for adolescent girls. I wrote it in 1994 to sound an alarm about the poisonous culture that adolescent girls were experiencing. At the time, my goals seemed grandiose. I wanted to educate therapists, teachers, and parents, to help girls heal, and to change the culture. Yet in some ways, I feel as if the book accomplished its aims. It was widely read and loved by many teenagers and their parents. Mothers told me that it helped them understand their daughters. Psychologists gradually moved away from attributing teenagers' problems to their dysfunctional families and turned instead to helping adolescents and their parents cope with a difficult cultural environment. Educators developed ways to encourage and sustain girls' interest in math and science. All over the country, organizations such as the Ophelia Project, Girl Scouts, and the YWCA worked to empower young women. I am deeply grateful to my readers, the communities that hosted me for speaking events, and the many people who contacted me to share their reactions to the book. My greatest reward has been to hear of all the positive changes that Reviving Ophelia inspired. 25 years later, I am honored to work with my daughter, Sarah, to update that edition. In this book, we explore what has and hasn't changed for girls, and we will examine the effects of American culture on the lives of girls today. We hope this new edition will be of use to girls and to the adults who want to help them grow into bold, kind, competent women. In the 1990s, my office was swamped with girls with serious, even life-threatening problems, such as anorexia or the desire to harm themselves. Others had problems that ranged from refusing to go to school, to intentionally underachieving, to constantly provoking fights with their parents. These kinds of issues were less dangerous than suicide threats, but more puzzling. Many of my clients were victims of sexual violence. As I talked with these girls, I became aware of how little I really understood about the world of adolescent girls in the 1990s. My adolescent experiences from the early 1960s weren't helpful. Girls in the 1990s were living in a whole new world, a world of increasingly violent and sexualized television, MTV videos, and blatantly sexualized advertising. As a therapist, I often felt bewildered and frustrated. These feelings led to questions. Why are so many girls in therapy? What is the meaning of lip, nose, and eyebrow piercings, which were new phenomena at that time? How can I help 13-year-olds deal with herpes or genital warts? Why are drugs and alcohol common in the stories of 7th graders? Why do so many girls say they hate their parents? Meanwhile, Sarah and her friends were riding a roller coaster. Sometimes they were happy and interested in their world. Other times they just seemed wrecked. They were hard on their families and one another. Junior high seemed like a crucible where confident, well-adjusted girls were transformed into sad and angry failures. When my friends and I talked about our adolescent daughters, we felt angry and unsure how to proceed. Many of us were frustrated by our daughters, who became upset with us for the smallest things. We had raised our girls to be assertive and confident, Yet they seemed to be insecure and concerned with their looks and femininity. Several dilemmas came up again and again. How could we encourage our daughters to be independent and autonomous and still keep them safe? How could we inspire them to take on a world that included kidnappers and date rapists? How could we offer them guidance and support without making them mad? Even in our small city, with its mostly middle-class population, girls often experienced trauma. How could we help girls heal from it? What could we do to prevent it? As a mother and therapist, I struggled to make sense of what I was observing. My friends and I had unleashed our share of adolescent angst, yet, for the most part, we didn't develop eating disorders, threaten suicide, cut ourselves, or run away from home. Why were girls having more trouble in the 1990s? At first blush, it seemed life for teenage girls should have felt better in 1994. After all, we had embraced the women's movement. Hadn't that helped? The answer turned out to be yes and no. Many of my friends, middle-aged and middle-class women like myself, were fortunate in ways few women had been since the beginning of time. We had opportunities our mothers never imagined possible. However, in specific ways, girls felt more oppressed. They were coming of age in a more dangerous, sexualized, and media-saturated culture. They faced incredible pressure to be beautiful and sophisticated, which in junior high meant using drugs and alcohol and being sexually active. As they navigated a more dangerous world, girls were less protected. The more I looked around, the more I listened to the music, watched television and movies, and examined sexist advertising, the more convinced I became that as a society, we were on the wrong path with our daughters. American culture was poisonous to teenage girls. The messages girls received about sex, beauty, and their place in the world truncated their development and left many of them traumatized. With the onset of puberty, girls were crashing into a junk culture that was just too hard for them to understand and master. Many became overwhelmed, depressed, and angry. In 1963, Betty Friedan wrote of The Problem with No Name. She pointed out that many women were miserable but couldn't articulate the source of that misery. Adolescent girls in the 1990s faced a similar unnamed problem. They knew that something was very wrong, but they looked for the source within themselves or their families. I wanted to help them see their lives in the context of larger cultural forces. With Reviving Ophelia, I named the problem I was seeing. Now, 25 years later, adolescent girls are doing better than girls were in the 1990s. But they, too, are coming of age in a new world, the digital world. As I reflect on 50 years of girls' lives, I realize how the culture has not only changed for girls. In 1959, I turned 13 with all the shyness, pimples, hormones, and self-consciousness that age implies. In the 1990s, I was the mother of a teenage daughter and a therapist working primarily with adolescent girls. Now, I have 2 teenage granddaughters. Kate, Sarah, and I are all members of Brink generations. Born right after World War II ended and living in rural Nebraska, I was a member of the last American generation to grow up without television. Born right after the official end of the Vietnam War, my daughter was in the last generation to be raised without cell phones, computers, or digital devices. And my granddaughter Kate, born in July 2001, 2 months before 9/11, is a member of the first generation of digital natives. I grew up in a slow time and place, and my world was my family and the tiny town of Beaver City, Nebraska. Most of the news was local, and most of our entertainment was locally manufactured, and face to face.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?